Kia ora koutou, and thank you for joining today's press conference and signing ceremony for the second Australia-New Zealand Foreign and Defence Ministerial Consultations. Today we have the Right Honourable Winston Peters, the Honourable Richard Marles, Senator the Honourable Penny Wong, and the Honourable Judith Collins. Deputy Prime Minister, the Honourable Winston Peters, I will pass it on to you for your opening remarks, to be followed by the Senator, the Honourable Penny Wong, Australian Minister for Foreign Affairs, the Honourable Richard Marles, Deputy Prime Minister of Australia and Minister of Defence, and the Honourable Judith Collins, Minister of Defence, for their opening remarks.
Well, it's my pleasure to welcome the Australian Deputy Prime Minister and Minister for Defence, and also the Senator, the Honourable Penny Wong, Minister of Foreign Affairs, to the New Zealand, Australia or Australia-New Zealand Ministerial Consultations, or as we know in the bureaucracy, ANZMIN. The closeness of our nations has never been more important to safeguard our national interests and chart a course towards a more peaceful, stable and prosperous world. To achieve this, we recognise that our foreign policy, security and defence interests are deeply intertwined and warrant being pursued in a strategically integrated way. For New Zealand, Australia is our closest partner, friend and our only formal ally. Together with our Australian colleagues, we are pleased to have set out here today our ambitions for our Trans-Tasman partnership. And so it's my pleasure to introduce to you now the Minister of Foreign Affairs for Australia, the Honourable Penny Wong.
Thank you very much, Deputy Prime Minister. Can I thank you and Minister Collins for your warm welcome and your hospitality at our second ANZMIN meeting in such beautiful surroundings. It's been a very constructive, positive, productive meeting, as you would expect, between friends, between family. We have a uniquely close relationship, and we do meet at a time where the sort of integration in our work together that the Deputy Prime Minister spoke about is just so important. We are in a permanent state of context in our region. That is the reality. And the Deputy Prime Minister of New Zealand has described the importance of being a participant and not a spectator in that. Working together, that's what we are seeking to do, to be participants in the reshaping of our region in pursuit of the same objectives, which are peace, security, stability and prosperity in our region. Examples of the work we are doing together to date, and I thank the Deputy Prime Minister for that. We're working together in Tuvalu's Coastal Adaptation Program. We're working together on the Pacific Humanitarian Warehousing Program. We're both contributing to Weather Ready Pacific to provide crucial early warning systems for severe weather events. We're working together to support connectivity in the region through the Pacific Connect cable together with the US and Japan, as well as our work together in oceans and fisheries. We are stronger together when we work with each other in support of the region, when we work with our Pacific neighbours, and New Zealand has a particular and an important role in the Pacific, and we recognise and respect that and are grateful for their cooperation. So thank you to the Deputy Prime Minister, thank you to Minister Collins. We look forward to building on this work between now and our next meeting.
Right, well, thank you, Penny and Winston and Judith. It's been a real pleasure to be here in New Zealand, and we very much appreciate your hospitality for what is the second ANZMIN this year, which makes 2024 a significant year in the context of Australia-New Zealand relations. In a moment, Judith and I will be signing the joint statement on closer defence relations. And it reflects a program that between Judith and myself we have been implementing to see our two defence forces become much more integrated. We now have deputy commanders in our respective operational commands. This is transformative in terms of how we plan our defence deployments. As a result, we've seen this year Australia and New Zealand cooperate in terms of maritime cooperative activities. We saw New Zealand participate in significant force at Exercise Pitch Black in Darwin earlier in the year, the major Air Force exercise that we do in Australia, and one of the major Air Force exercises that occurs within the world. Next year, we will see New Zealand's largest presence at Exercise Talisman Sabre, which is the signature exercise that Australia engages in. We're looking at ways in which we can do more within the Pacific, and 2 months ago Judith hosted a very successful South Pacific Defence Ministers meeting here in Auckland, and as part of that our two countries have worked together on the establishment of the Pacific Response Group, which is making a real difference in terms of coordinating the defence forces of the Pacific, and particularly in responding to humanitarian and disaster relief events. We're looking at ways in which we can explore procurement together. And the joint declaration that we're about to sign will provide ambition for these objectives going forward, so that our two defence forces will plan together, procure together and operate together in a much more significant way. In 2024, this is building ANZAC, quite literally. And it is the way that we ensure that the money that we spend on defence has the biggest impact. It is about how much we spend, but it's about the quality of that spend as well, and working together maximises that. As Penny said, we live in a difficult world. We live in a world where the strategic landscape is as complex as it has been since the end of the Second World War. We are seeing the rules-based order, which is very much in the interests of Australia but also of New Zealand, being placed under significant pressure in places like Eastern Europe but throughout the Indo-Pacific as well. And in this moment, it is absolutely critical that we are doubling down on our closest relationships, and in respect of New Zealand, what that means is that we are doubling down on family.
Well, thank you very much, and I'm so delighted, along with Winston, to have Penny and Richard here with us today. Our relationship with Australia goes back a very long way. I like to sometimes remind people we were once a colony of New South Wales, which was pretty staggering, but neither I nor Winston were there at the time. Having said that, we do go back a long way when it comes to defence, whether it was in World War I with the ANZAC forces, but all the way through we have been together as much as we possibly can. And our defence alliance with Australia goes back to 1952 with the ANZUS alliance post-World War II. And that strength that we have together is continuing to grow, and is particularly important now, as has been noted. The world is not a happy place. Our Pacific is not free of conflict and tension and stress and strategic manoeuvring, and we have to play our part not only to protect and look after ourselves, but also our Pacific neighbours and the Southeast Asian area. We are so much better when we are working together, and that's why earlier this year when Richard and I met and decided that we should have something like an ANZAC force, that is exactly what we've been doing this year, making that a reality, much more interoperability. We already have a very long relationship with our service people, with each other, between Australia and New Zealand, but we're taking it further, and that is because we have shared interests. We have shared interests, but we also have liberal democratic values, and we value very much the same things, like the rule of law, like freedom of expression. These are the sorts of things that we consider very important. We're also aware that the Pacific is becoming increasingly difficult when it comes to the international rules-based order and stresses on that, and we need to be able to work together. So that's why Richard and I are going to be signing our updated statement of closer defence relations, and then putting it in practice, because all the things we've promised each other this year we have delivered on together. So we're feeling very happy about that. It's good to have family that you can count on.
Right, it's question time.
Before questions, I now invite media to capture the formal signing of the Australia-New Zealand Joint Statement on Closer Defence Relations.
We can ask questions at the same time, okay?
We could just do the press conference. We could just do the press conference while they're doing that.
No, thanks, no, that's all right. Yes. We just get to sign the cheques.
Some of them.
All ministers will now take questions from the media.
First of all, for Foreign Ministers, Lucy Ranger from Free News. Since you first met, things have globally deteriorated in terms of stability, Israel, Gaza, Ukraine, now Syria. When you look towards 2025, generally, how do you feel about the outlook for the world, and what can New Zealand and Australia actually contribute towards improving it?
Well, look, the meeting of Penny Wong and myself was not the occasion of that world changing dramatically in the way you framed that question. But never mind, the reality is that it is a more difficult world, and more is happening in parts of the world that we thought were not part of our bailiwick, but they are, whether it's in Europe or whether it's in our part of the world. Our purpose is to ensure we get in front of events by means of our cooperation and preparedness, and that's what we're doing.
You're right, the outlook is increasingly complicated. It is. But we have to start from the place of saying, you know, we have some agency. We may not be able to control or determine what happens across the world, but we have choices about what we do. And we make those choices. We make those choices every day in what we do in the Pacific, in the Indo-Pacific more broadly, and we make the choice to work together as closely as we do. In the Pacific, you know, you are very lucky, frankly, to have Deputy Prime Minister Peters, who speaks with weight and gravitas and wisdom in his engagement with the Pacific, and that matters. That matters for the stability of both countries. So we can make choices about, the stability of the region, which is in both countries' interests. So we will continue to do what we need to do, which is to have our countries work together as partners for strategic stability, for regional stability and for peace.
Next question, Barbara.
Barbara Dreamer, I'm the correspondent at Television New Zealand. This is for our defence ministers. Obviously, New Zealand is still licking our wounds from Manuanui sinking and other related costs along with defence cuts. Realistically, how much can New Zealand contribute to joint operations, and what does Australia expect? Did you impart some bad news today, Ms Collins, to Australia?
What about
costs and
No, I'm not imparting any such bad news. No, I think it's very important that we understand that we're not licking our wounds, not at all. In fact, our Royal New Zealand Navy has absolutely stepped up, done the right thing, and been incredibly honest and transparent about what was a very difficult situation. What I can say is that that is obviously there's cost to that, but ultimately New Zealand is doing its part. We have, as you will be aware, 3 ships that are in care and custody because we didn't have enough crew. We now have crew available for one of those ships, so it's getting itself ready and it will be out at sea next year. So I think we need to understand is that New Zealand's been through a very difficult time in defence. You will know as well as that last year we were facing up to 17.7% attrition, which was extraordinary. We had a total hollowing out. That has been reversed. We are down to about 7.2% attrition, and we have more people wanting to join defence than what we've got the capability of training and getting them into places. So, look, we're in a far better situation than we were. As you all know, we're undergoing the process of the Defence Capability Plan, or DCP, and it's quite a long process because this world has changed this last year, and we're trying to make sure that we have something that is credible. But everything that we're doing, we're looking to see how we can be more interoperable with Australia. That is our only formal ally, but also our closest friend and family member, and we have to be very realistic about it. We need to work together. So I don't think we've got any bad news. I think what we're doing is we're working very much towards the positive. So anyway, I'll pass over to you, Richard.
We deeply value the New Zealand Defence Force, as we deeply value New Zealand and we deeply value our relationship with New Zealand. In the last 12 months, what we've seen is the first joint sale of our two navies in many, many years. That's a really important step forward. We are looking at other areas where we can work together. Critical areas, obviously, in the Pacific. And we, as I mentioned earlier, Judith hosted a really successful South Pacific Defence Ministers meeting here in Auckland 2 months ago. The Pacific Response Group, which both of our Defence Forces are contributing to, is really groundbreaking in terms of building a Pacific Defence family in a real and operational sense, which makes a difference in terms of responding to natural disasters. So New Zealand has a really significant role to play in defence. The New Zealand Defence Force, there are huge, obviously, personal links which exist between our two defence forces. So our two defence, at that level, there's a huge value which is placed upon the relationship and the contribution that the NZDF can make. And we're really excited about, as we look forward to that relationship being more integrated, being closer, being more ANZAC.
Is 2% of GDP defence spending, is that seen as a floor or a ceiling from either side, and is there a commitment from either side to reaching and maintaining that level of spending?
Well, I mean, people often focus on that particular metric. We will make both countries, our own decisions around what we spend in respect of defence. I think what is right to say is that in a rational world, defence spending is a function of strategic complexity and strategic threat, and we certainly assess that we live in a much more strategically complex world, and that's why we're increasing defence spending in Australia. But as important as the amount is the quality of the spend. And we're really focused on that. We're focused on that in terms of our own decision-making in Australia about prioritising how we spend the defence budget. But an obvious way in which we can maximise that is by working closely together with New Zealand. And that's really why creating a more ANZAC force is so much in the interests of both of us, because it really does go to ensuring that whatever we're spending on defence, the quality of that spend is maximised.
Yeah.
Radio New Zealand. For the Australian ministers, the Labor Party here have declared it wouldn't join AUKUS in any capacity. Is that misguided, and what would the consequences for New Zealand be if it did not join AUKUS, particularly with a view into the Pacific?
Well, I think we just need to take a deep breath here for a moment. Firstly, AUKUS is a technology transferring arrangement between the United States, the United Kingdom and Australia. Pillar 1 is in relation to Australia acquiring a particular submarine capability, and that is very much between the three countries. Pillar 2 is looking at ways in which we can work together as three countries on innovative defence technologies, and we are putting in place a program where that's happening. Right now, if we're being honest, the three of us are very much focused on making sure that our own defence science, our own innovation systems are maximised so that we really are being able to, as best as possible, coordinate the way in which we operate to work on those newer, innovative defence technologies. We have embarked on a process of speaking with other countries on a case-by-case basis, meaning project-by-project basis, looking at where there might be opportunities to cooperate in the future in respect of various defence technologies. Now, none of that's about to happen tomorrow. This is a long way down the track, but we are having those conversations. We've made clear that the first country with whom we would cooperate with is Japan, but even there, that's not about to happen tomorrow either. It's pretty natural that we would be looking at talking with other countries who have capability and where there is very close strategic trust, and that's obviously Five Eyes countries in the context of Canada and New Zealand, as well as speaking with Korea. So that's where it's at. I mean, the debate is sometimes put in terms of joining some kind of club. That's not what really is going on here. In terms of AUKUS Pillar 2, we're talking about in the future and a fair way down the track, whether there is the possibility to cooperate on specific technology projects. Yes, we're exploring that. It's early days. It's not more than that.
Perhaps I can respond to the underlying question, which is, how do we respond? How does any country respond to the strategic circumstances that we are all describing, which are more difficult for both of our countries? And each country makes its own sovereign decisions about how to deal with that. We've made a set of decisions, including in relation to AUKUS, but more generally about how we want to contribute to regional stability, how we want to contribute to peace. I've seen some comments about containment, and what I'd say to you is, no, we don't engage in this because for that objective. We engage in this in these decisions always for the purpose of seeking greater regional stability in circumstances where we see more contest and more competition. We do it because we want to see a region where international law, including in relation to the law of the sea and in the South China Sea, is respected. We do this because we want to see a region where no country is dominant and no country is dominated, where all of us can make our sovereign choices to agree and to disagree. New Zealand is a partner in that in many ways and a friend.
Can I just say, look, yesterday we had the privilege of going 2.5 hours by road north of Noumea to a place called Bure, where there's a cemetery which is a tribute to them and ourselves of our soldiers and airmen who died and were taken there for treatment, but nevertheless they died and are buried there. It's a very, very salutary lesson to be walking there and seeing how many young New Zealanders who are there buried, and to remember in the famous poem I done, ask not for whom the bell tolls, it tolls for thee. They went to war because we weren't prepared in the first place. Our job is to ensure that we have the military preparation so that war is not an option for others.
Well, first, Australia supports and has historically been a friend of Israel, and Australia supports a two-state solution. We have been clear that we want to see the cycle of violence that we are all witnessing end. We want to contribute in the ways we can with partners to peace and towards a two-state solution. We've been clear that Palestinian civilians cannot continue to pay the price of defeating Hamas. We are concerned that we see, a year since the overwhelming majority of countries, including New Zealand and Australia, voted for a ceasefire, and now we see tens of thousands more killed, including some 14,000 children. Reflect on that for a moment. So, we see a two-state solution as the only way to assure peace and security for Israelis and Palestinians alike. In relation to recognition, what I have said is that we see recognition as a potential contributor to a process of peace, and that the international community does need to be part of that.
Kia ora, Lydia Lewis from Radio New Zealand. My question is for both Australian ministers here. To what ways is Australia supportive of the Kanak desire for independence in New Caledonia?
You go.
Well, can I first acknowledge and thank Winston for his, I think as he indicated, he's recently been in New Caledonia. We want to see, these are issues that need to be resolved by the people of New Caledonia and by France. But what we don't want to see is the sort of violence that we saw, and we hope that there can be a peaceful process of engagement. And I know it's important that the other countries engage to support that and facilitate that, and we're very pleased that New Zealand is doing so.
How could Australia support and facilitate that?
Well, I've answered your question. Thank you.
I agree with what Penny said, obviously.
Mr. Peters, perhaps you could expand on this, like how, what sort of impact has France's unstable political situation had on New Zealand's efforts to try and get some stability in New Caledonia, and how have you moved on this issue?
Well, the situation in Paris is inconvenient. It's not the best of circumstances to have the uncertainty going on there, but we've got to press on with New Caledonia, and we went there to listen, to hear all sides of the story, to talk to them about what they all wanted and whether they could combine going forward and agree on a pathway that, say, 15, 20 years from now, they could settle on. The complex thing, of course, is that you've got not just 2 or 3 different views, you've got a range of Kanaki views themselves. But here's the point. France is a first world country. France is a country that's able to help them with billions of dollars a year. Where would you get a replacement? So our job is to find their long-term ambitions in terms of independence in happy cooperation with France. And we're not giving out the formula now, but we're saying if we can possibly help, we can show you how in our long struggle to get equality, we have made progress despite all the politics. And if we can demonstrate to the Kanaki how you can use your land better because of a certification of ownership and cooperation that we had the benefit of under that genius called Ngata when he put together the Maori land and corporations with everybody registered. We saw vacuums there which we believe we could fill. And our offer is, come over to New Zealand, we'll show you how it's done, not to show off, but we want to help, genuinely, because you're our nearest neighbour and you're critical to the peace and stability of the Pacific.
Geopolitically, things are pretty tense in the region, and I know that there is that concern, isn't there, with Kiribati? What about the base? How much concern is over the Chinese establishing a base in Antarctica in terms of the regional stability?
Well, I think we all understand we live in a time of permanent contest in our region. We all understand that there is greater competition for influence and for strategic space, and we also all understand that our job is, even though we're middle powers, we're not great, we're not great superpowers, but we have a job, all of us, to contribute to stability and peace, including through deterrence. And we're very grateful for the cooperation, I think you described it as the intertwining work that we do, and for the shared objectives. There's such a deal of alignment between us.